or that you don't think is the best you could do? And he looked at me as if I'd come from Mars. Or these days you can say, he looked at me as if I came from Discovery's space shuttle. But because I came from advertising, where I found a lot of people who are outstanding at what they did, it helped me in my career in journalism as well. And you never know who's reading what, you never know who's watching which program. And that's the great joy of giving 100% every single time, because you don't know who's watching what. In our profession, you never know who's watching which program and where a big new opportunity is going to come from. I mean, one of the lines that people throw at me most often is something that I just quoted, a throwaway line, and I said, what have I said here? But you don't know, as I said, who's watching. I was comparing Sunil Gavaskar and Sachin Tendulkar, and I said, as India's economy changed, Tendulkar is a product of a new economy, because Gavaskar was a product of a licensed, socialist-driven economy. And I said he batted like he had bank deposits, whereas Tendulkar bats like he's playing the equity markets. And you know, and all of a sudden people said, wow, here's, and I didn't mean, it wasn't prepared, I didn't mean to say it, but people suddenly said, hang on, this guy's got more than just cricket in him. That's why, if you're willing to give 100% every single time, you never know who's listening to what. The third point I wanted to make was, in life, if you seek excellence, you must always seek people who are better than you. Sometimes when you reach a level of excellence, and if you're not secure, if you're insecure of what you've achieved, then you always surround yourself with people who are lesser than you. And the moment you surround yourself with people who are lesser than you, you stop growing. So for a purely selfish reason, if not for anything else, you must always surround yourself with people who are better than you. Because then you learn and you grow. And they may not be better than you at your profession. People might say, hang on, this guy's done, what, 70, 75 test matches, 370 one-day international, who's he going to work with who's better than him? That's nonsense for a start anyway. But you might watch a cameraman work and see the great discipline and excellence he brings to his job. And you say, wow, man, can I be in my profession what this cameraman is to him, is to his profession? And believe me, when I started out in this whole television profession, I had no heroes. I had no heroes and I had no one to look up to. In radio broadcasting, because we had a tradition of radio broadcasting in India, a tradition that we have killed and we are currently at the moment burying as deep as we can, you had someone to look up to. But in television, I had no one to look up to. So I'd sort of hang around the crew, you know. And I later discovered that some of these sort of, you know, these very dandy presenters never hung around with the crew, with the rigger. Those riggers used to have big leather gloves and they had grease all over them, and I'd look at them and say, wow, these guys are working their backside off. And we had a mid-wicket cameraman called Johnny de Villiers from South Africa. In those days, we only had one mid-wicket camera. We still do, even now, there's only one mid-wicket camera. He had to, while the ball was being bowled, had to check the no ball, because the no ball is best viewed from mid-wicket camera. This was before the cameras were locked off, before you had the 4 locked off cameras to check that. As soon as the ball was bowled, and can you imagine how quick it is when a fast bowler is bowling? On television, you have no idea of speed. Whether it's Formula 1 or a fast bowler, you get no idea of speed on television. He's got to check the no ball, and then straight away he's got to move to the batting crease. Luckily, you don't get stumpings with people who are bowling with no balls, but assume a spinner's bowling. He's got a little bit more time, but he's got to go from the no ball straight to the crease to check if there's a stumping. If a ball's been hit, he's got to follow the ball, and then promptly come back to see if there's a chance of a run out. And sometimes, you know, and this actually happened once, where someone threw the ball to the striker's end, and there's a run out chance there, and the wicketkeeper promptly realized there's a run out chance at the non-striker's end. Now this guy's the only one. So he's gone there for the run out. He's quickly realized that the run out is there. He's quickly gone there so that he can check if he can get the run out there. And I just looked at that thing and said, shit, this man's a genius. And I asked him afterwards, and he said, you know what? He said, I've never missed a stumping in my life. I said, to me, that is excellence. These were my heroes. Because I didn't have broadcasting heroes to look up to, my heroes were technicians. My heroes were the replay editors. I remember long before television moved entirely to discs. Today there are no tapes. Today in the entire edit suite or in the entire engineering section, there are no tapes at all. Everything works on discs now. And long before that, you had tapes. And everything had to be logged. So I remember a game in Toronto during the Sahara Cup where Vinod Kambli hit a boundary, And I said, you know what, two games ago, he got out playing exactly the same shot. And today he's hit it a couple of feet that way and he's got a 4. So I hit the lazy button that we have. You know, when we speak into the microphone, but it doesn't go out, it only goes to the producer. You probably hear that sometimes when you don't press that button well, and you hear commentators saying things they shouldn't say. And I said, you know, can you pull out his dismissal from the last match? Within a minute, I heard the director saying, okay, dismissal's ready, I've put both shots back to back to you. And I said, the guy who pulled that out must be a genius. You know what all he did in that 1 minute? He pulled out his logs. On his log, it said, Vinod Kamli dismissal, tape 4, 24.32, or whatever it was. Pulled out tape 4, put the tape 4 in the machine, queued it up, set it up on one machine, took the replay of this shot, set it up on another machine for him to play back to back because I asked for it. I said, these are champions, and my heroes were all technicians. And that is where this great desire for excellence came in. And I thought to myself, I must be as good in my profession as these people are in theirs. And sometimes when we start to reach a certain level, we surround ourselves with smaller people, or we start hating criticism. I don't know if you've seen that happening to a lot of people. Once you've reached a certain level, you don't like criticism. And, I mean, what is the worst thing that will happen if people criticize you? They say you did something wrong. If you do something wrong, you should be game enough to say, sorry, I did it wrong, before someone else says it was wrong. And it's always very important on the path to excellence to have people around you who will tell you whether you're doing right or wrong. And in show business, that is the toughest thing of all. I don't know if some of you picked up something that Simone Vaughan said recently. She said, my husband Shane lives in a rarefied bubble. He said he has no idea what is right and wrong because he lives in a rarefied bubble. There's nobody in Shane Vaughan's life to tell him, listen buddy, what you're doing is wrong. On the path to excellence, you'll find that there's a lot of people who want to say nice things about you. And in course of time, you'll start to build a highway between your ears and let people you don't know just come and say, wow, you're very good. Smile and let that go away. You tend to remember when people say, you know what? Just watch out, you're stumbling a little bit. Well, I told Rahul Dravid once many, many years ago when he was a young man, and he told me the only two people interested in me getting married, my grandmother and you. Little did he know that I wanted that whole waiting, that queue around him to get released. Because every woman I met said, you know Rahul Dravid? And very innocently I said, you could know me as well, you know. Yeah. My wife was supposed to come with me and pulled out this afternoon because the flight was late. I said, never marry a fan. I said, I can't advise you anything about the way you bat. But for heaven's sake, don't ever marry a fan. Marry a girl who will tell you, listen, you're doing something wrong. Because only then will your marriage survive. You marry a girl who's telling you, listen, you're great, and you know, Rahul Dravid. You know, you can't marry someone who's marrying 22 hundreds. Or in Tendulkar's case, someone who's marrying 70 hundreds. So, he told me one day, he said, I remembered that when I was getting married. I said, I hope you remembered a few other things as well. but I think it's very important in life never to marry a fan. Because arrogance often comes in the way of excellence. It's one of the biggest stumbling blocks on the path to excellence. And I know a thing or two about that because I've been the greatest beneficiary of the arrogance of Indian cricket. Because the one question that has prevented Indian cricket and Indian cricketers from growing into human beings and therefore into better cricketers is how much cricket have you played? So everybody, even if whether you're a surgeon or a lawyer, you're always judged by that on the scales. It says, how much cricket have you played? And earlier it used to bother me a great deal. And after a while I said, hang on, anybody who says, how much cricket have you played, believes that that is the only thing that counts in the world. So I've got a great chance here. And I was able to succeed initially in my profession because I was willing to do what it took. And a lot of people weren't because they were cricketers. And so they had to be cricketers, right? It's like bit actresses in serials and movies who carry on this pretense of being stars when they actually can't afford to be stars. I met this actress once who said, you know, everyone thinks I make a lot of money. We were on a flight together sitting next to each other, which gave me about 25 dirty looks on that flight, I can assure you. And said, you know, everyone thinks that we are very rich. He said, we've got to keep up this facade of being glamorous, and sometimes we can't afford this facade. And it's